On this story, we can bring in our international affairs editor, Armin Georgian. Armin, this is very much part of the culture war, isn't it, between Western nations and Western EU states and Central European members, not just Hungary?
It's definitely a culture war, and what we see is socially conservative movements in some Central European states using this narrative of Western members of the EU imposing alien values on traditional societies in Hungary and Poland. And that is an argument which does have resonance with older voters of Fidesz and Law and Justice, the ruling party in Poland, because those older voters have very strong memories of communism and how communism alien values on Poles and Hungarians. So it is an argument which is quite clever in a way in having that resonance. And another big part of the appeal that these conservative movements are trying to give is this sense of Western Europe being hypocritical, that Western Europe always preaches about solidarity and Europe being stronger together, but then when push comes to shove, countries like France will tighten border controls when faced with more asylum seekers coming through from Italy, or indeed tightening border controls because of COVID, like any sovereign nation wants to do. So this idea of hypocrisy of Western EU nations talking about the European interest but actually acting in the national interest when it suits them, that's a kind of very broad strategy that these conservatives are using. On the other side of the equation, Delano, you've got leaders like Macron, Merkel and Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister. He actually made the point very forcefully to Viktor Orban at a recent EU summit that this is a question not of imposing alien values, but simply upholding norms that every EU member state signed up to when they joined the European Union. And Rutte told Orban, how can I say to candidate countries to the EU like North Macedonia and Albania that they have to uphold equality and non-discrimination when an existing member of the EU club is not upholding those very same principles. So this is the idea that Europe cannot be simply a trading bloc, but actually has to be a community of values. That's what the Western leaders, that's how they see things.
Armin, earlier, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission president, called this law a shame. Today, she's warning Hungary to rectify its law or face the consequences. So is the EU taking any action against Hungary here?
Well, the EU is already drawing up plans to do something about these so-called LGBTQ-free zones in Poland. We should be hearing more about that in the next few weeks. It would not be surprising if the Commission drew plans at the same time to challenge this Hungarian LGBT law. That is very possible because the EU has been moving towards launching an infringement procedure which could end up in the European Court of Justice. That, of course, is a process that takes a long time. It's not impossible that a compromise, though, will be found, because there was a problem between the EU and Poland and Hungary back in December over rule of law issues, and that problem was threatening to block coronavirus recovery funding to Poland and Hungary, but the compromise allowed ultimately that funding to go through to Poland and Hungary. So there may be a compromise found this time round again, Delano, or possibly the EU will decide that this LGBT law in Hungary is just a bridge too far, and then they may decide they want to challenge Hungary right up until the end.
We'll see what happens, Armin. Thank you very much for that, Armin.